Thank you, Dr. Brukasz and Dr. Długopolska, for organizing this whole event. So my topic is the USMLE Step 1 and 2. So you've taken the MCAT, you're in medical school, and now you need to take this in order to get a residency in the States. So what is it? Step 1 is basic science, and you apply it to principles of medicine. Both are very long exams. Step 2 is clinical knowledge of diagnosis and also applying it to clinical medicine. Overall, it's around 280 questions to 315 that are divided into 7 blocks, each 60 minutes long. Each is a one-day exam and approximately 8 to 9 hours with a 1-hour lunch break. So when to take it? I was in the 6-year program at Jagiellonian in Krakow, so I took it in between my 4th and 5th year. I took that summer and dedicated that study time solely for step studying. And then step 2 I did before my 6th year of medical school, and that's typically what 6-year medical students do. The 4-year program, especially here in the States, from just gathering my classmates' information, they usually take it at the end of the 2nd year, and then the step 2 will be at the end of the 3rd year through the middle of the 4th year, because you will want those numbers, especially now that the step 1 is pass or fail, you will want the step 2 before applying to residency. So what to use? I'm piggybacking off of Joseph Tomecki because I think everyone's different, but I think it's important to kind of dedicate time and really, wake up in the morning, take those 16 hours to study and get some good sleep. Don't try anything new that you've never done, like drink coffee. But most people do use the first aid. This was my Bible. I'm also Catholic. So it's like a condensed collection of high-yield facts and points. I also put my notes in there from the Q banks. So what is a Q bank? It's basically a collection of, I think, around 2,000 questions that you buy. And there's a couple options that I listed there. What I used, starting from the beginning of medical school, I bought the USMLE RX, and just studying for subjects in medical school, I filtered those questions to kind of help me for those exams and kind of get a general idea of what I would be in for during the USMLE as well. And then what I focused on for the sole studying for the USMLE during those summers was the Kaplan Q Bank, which I also did twice, and then the UWorld Q Bank, which that was my whole summer. The UWorld is more like the exam, so that should be aimed at least to do twice. And then, like I mentioned, my first aid, I filled in my notes in from my Q banks into my first aid, and then read those over 2 to 3 times just to be prepared. What I also used just throughout medical school, which I know helped me, were board review series books, and that included all the subjects that would be in the USMLE, so like anatomy, pathophysiology, pathology, genetics, biochemistry. Those had a nice review, and they had questions in the back of each chapter. So the more questions, basically, the better I think you'll have an understanding of what to do during the exam. A lot of people use Goulion. It's an audio that talks about mostly pathology, but also has some good tips for the USMLE. I myself didn't use this. I used Pathoma, which was fantastic just studying for my own pathology class, and I kind of had it memorized for the actual studying for the exam, because I found it really helpful during my pathology class in medical school. What I did do also throughout medical school, I watched the Kaplan videos to kind of, I also like someone telling me what to do. As far as studying, I prefer that over reading a book. So I use that kind of as a backbone into my classes during medical school. And those had also great sessions with questions at the end. And then taking practice questions or tests while studying, that's very important. I myself recommend signing up for a practice USMLE. At the center you'll be taking it like I did, and I found it was very helpful just knowing where everything was. And then of course NBMEs, if you're in medical school in America, will also help you throughout medical school for the USMLE. So how to study. Everyone's different, but generally don't try anything different during that time. Try to get as much sleep as you can. Like I said, I studied for 16 hours a day, morning to night, doing questions and kind of making sure I understood the material, but I made sure to get at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep, because otherwise I don't know how I would retain anything. But I studied best in a quieter environment by myself for the most of the 3 months. I would have like scheduled telephone calls to go over flashcards, fast points intermittently, but would only be only after going through everything by myself. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I missed out on a lot of family and friend time and socializing those summers, which is more of a theme for these exams. And I think it's something that most people have to do. And then the scoring now. So when I took the step 1, it was actually scored, and I think that was one of the main factors that helped differentiate students. I mean, it's one of the factors, not everything, but it kind of weeded out some applicants for residency. So, and I know some people have failed the step 1. I mean, it will be on the application. They will know. It's not impossible to get residency, but it is significantly harder. What I've heard that this is a significant, it's not really favorable for international medical students now that it's pass or fail. They kind of will focus more on the step 2 score, which now you kind of want to take it quite a bit beforehand to make sure that score is back before you apply. So step 2 is still scored. So this may be the most important factor as far as examinations in differentiating candidates applying for different residencies. And different residencies will have different suggested scores. I will say that my residency did weed out just baseline based on the score. So they weeded out, I think it was 220 was the lowest score you could have had. So just something to keep in mind. And thank you, but all in all, step 1 and 2 are important factors in medical students' path to obtaining residency. It's important to remember to dedicate those 2 to 3 months and just study. You will have time to celebrate later, and don't waste time. Time is precious, and learn the ways that best help you retain information throughout medical school. Thank you.